the experience that China has had needs to be shared. They knew what they needed to do. They knew how they had to protect themselves, how they could protect their families, and what they needed to do collectively to bring this under control.
The world has been fighting the COVID-19 outbreak for over a month now. And now, China perhaps has the most knowledge and experience about the virus. In the country, the number of new cases has dropped to less than 100 a day. But around the world, the new virus is still causing panic. We recently asked Facebook users how they felt about China's measures to contain the COVID-19 outbreak. And over 2/3 of the responders agreed with what China had done since the critical early days of the outbreak. So, here are the 5 things China did to turn the situation around. Number 1. Lockdown in 3 days. On January 23rd, the Chinese government ordered people in Wuhan, where the new coronavirus was first discovered, not to leave the city, effectively putting it on lockdown. It was a tough decision to make, of course, and China took it in less than 3 days after it became evident that human-to-human transmission had occurred. At the time, no one knew what the consequences would look like. You can see that the Hubei province is in the center of China, and Wuhan is a city of more than 14 million people. Keep in mind that Wuhan was quarantined just 1 day before the Chinese New Year's Eve, which fell on January 24th. That time coincides with Chunyun, the world's largest annual human migration, with 3 billion trips expected during that month as people returned home to celebrate the New Year with their loved ones. So, imagine what would have happened if China had not made that decision.
I suppose maybe people will misunderstanding the lockdown of Wuhan or something like that. But I should say it's definitely necessary to do that. If it is delayed for a couple of days, and that will cause much more spreading all over China as well as in the world.
Number 2, emergency hospital in 10 days. China is known for China's speed, of course, but the country has outdone itself in times of crisis. Building a hospital in 10 days from scratch is no easy feat, but with almost every hospital in Wuhan flooded with patients and among surging numbers of new infections, there was only one option available, and that is to build more hospitals. It normally takes at least 6 to 8 months to construct a new hospital, and the first facility China built in Wuhan has 1,000 beds and 30 intensive care units. China mobilized military and medical staff from all over the country to help build and operate the hospital. So once again, the lesson learned here is speed is a top priority. Number 3. And here in Beijing, we have a very strict self-quarantine rule for 14 days. So what does it mean? Like if you have contact with people who travel from Hubei province, you will be quarantined for 14 days. And if you self-travel outside the city, you will be quarantined for 14 days. And if you share a room with people traveled outside the city, you will be quarantined for 14 days. And if your body temperature is over 37.3 degrees Celsius, you will be quarantined for 14 days. And if you have people nearby who are infected by the coronavirus, you will be quarantined for 14 days. But why 14 days? Because that is the exact time of the incubation period of coronavirus, and according to the scientists, of course. Number 4, control of daily activities. But even for those who decided not to travel and stay where they are, things weren't exactly easy either. Movie theaters, parks, museums, and art galleries were all closed, and only a handful of restaurants stayed open in the first few weeks of the outbreak. Business only operated in convenience stores and supermarkets, and even there, specific measures were in place. Like everywhere else, wearing a face mask was and still is a must. You also can't set food inside any closed public space without having your body temperature taken at the door. And in certain neighborhoods, residents had to fill out a form with information about the places they visited, the place transport modes they've taken, and the people they talked with, basically everything. Number 5, working from home. Such an unprecedented epidemic can easily deal a heavy blow to China's economy. So to stop that from happening, we just cannot stay home and sort of doing nothing. People weren't just sitting at home, they were working from home. And they weren't just finishing their work online, they were also shopping, ordering food, and socializing without setting their foot outside the door. When facing hardship, different countries respond differently. During this emergency, China chose urgency. Everything the country did, it did with minimal time for the maximum effect. The new coronavirus is a global threat for all human beings. And at this stage, speed is the most important thing in prevention work. We know that precautions must be taken because life is just too precious to lose.